I thought the pile of CDs background was pretty funny, Jimmy.
We are live on YouTube. Are you there, Jimmy?
Jimmy had a pile of CDs.
It is pretty cool.
Is it a real pile or just like a picture of them?
Probably virtual, I'm sure.
Okay. I know I have a lot of vinyl in my garage that I don't know what to do with.
I can help with that, Ben. We can talk later.
Has anybody tried to sell? But they're mostly 45s, bro. And I don't think there might be a market for it, but these record stores seem like they just want albums primarily, or maybe CDs.
We can talk later. I'll help you out with that.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I just don't know what to do with them. I have quite a few, and they're like from 1965 to 75 era mostly.
Oh,
They're like rarities mostly, non-chart kind of things. So they're more collectibles than they are like top 40 stuff. I don't know if that makes a difference.
it makes it more desirable than a stack of hot chocolate 45s.
Okay. Well, you sexy thing. You mean that kind of hot chocolate, right?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah, that's. I thought you were talking
Actually,
to me.
the
I was
band
gonna
that
be
band
like,
Hot
what?
Chocolate. Yeah, the band Hot Chocolate. That singer guy actually wrote a lot of hits for other people that people don't really know about. Not just his own band, but he was a pretty big songwriter, I guess, too.
I think I remember hearing that somewhere.
Well, he was produced by this guy Mickey Most, who was the big guy in the well
Yeah,
60s, 70s, 80s, and he had a label called Rack, and he signed everybody. He had everybody signed there, from Donovan to Susie Quattro and Hot Chocolate, Herman's Hermits, all that stuff. But then, but he was still doing it into the 90s, even, I think. Pretty interesting guy. I think he wrote a book that never came out. I was kind of interested to read it.
Yeah, I think the book actually did come out.
Did it come out? I was looking for it because I remember reading something about it.
Yeah, and I can't remember how that happened, but yeah, I remember something about that book being available at one point in time. But anyway, speaking of books available, how's your book doing there, Ben?
Well, it's always for sale, but it came out a couple years ago, so
Yeah,
I don't know. It sells steadily, but mostly it's just when I speak at events like this, I get to tell people about it and remind them about it. But it's not like I'm actively promoting it with press and things like that, which you kind of have to do. Although I've seen books that really sell a lot. They get tons of uh what is it when people write a review, yeah, and get lots of positive reviews. And if somebody goes there and sees hundreds of positive reviews, they're more apt to buy it. But for some reason, it's hard to get real reviews. I guess you could probably have AI create reviews for you these days, but I
Yeah.
haven't done that.
Have you ever heard of this thing called Fake Spot? Fake Spot is a piece of software you can
No.
actually when you're on Amazon, it will tell you how many of the reviews are fake. They rate it from
Wow.
A
How does
through
it know?
F. Because when people write fake reviews, there's a certain pattern to them, when they
Okay.
have bots do it and things like that. So,
I
and
guess it
it's
would.
quite
Yeah. I
quite
guess it would.
interesting. Yeah.
I mean, I think I can read something and usually probably say that doesn't look authentic to me, but then again, I don't know for sure because reviews tend to be short. Sometimes they're just one or two words. Sometimes it's several sentences.
Yeah.
But usually it looks legitimate. It's hard to get people to do reviews because even me, I've read many books I've liked, but I never took the time to do a review of it.
Right. Right.
I think you almost have to ask people, like as part of your promotions. It's almost like, hey,
Right.
if you like this, please write a review. I mean, but I didn't really even think about that till after the fact.
Yeah. Gotcha.
yeah,
I'll go write one for you right now, Ben.
Oh, good. Well, if you like it, I mean, I hope you like it.
yeah, and so much keeps changing in this industry. Passman just did a whole new edition of his book. I
Yeah.
heard recently, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, he does it. I think he's on his 13th edition. I mean, there's always something you can add because it's the digital. He has to stay cutting edge for sure with his book. It's way more comprehensive, and people I think look to him as the ultimate authority on it. And luckily, I know Don Passman is a good guy, but he works at a big firm and he has a lot of staff, and he has people that probably research and help him do all the drafting, and I wouldn't be surprised. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, but I mean, he's definitely the originator of that kind of a book.
Yeah, except that book is about the size of Webster's, so it's like, nah, I don't know.
Oh, is it getting that big? Well, when I first got into business, it was this. I don't know if anybody remembers. It was This Business of Music, that
You know,
book
right.
before Passman, and that book was like the Bible. It was this thick and very hard to read, but it was the only book there was on the music business. But it was more like an encyclopedia, dictionary kind of a book I found. And then Passman wrote his book, which was much easier to read.
Yeah, still not that easy though. That's why uh whatchamacall, the Craft and Business Songwriter with Berhaney, and then that made it very simple.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. John Berhaney's book was good.
Yeah. And a lot of that still applies, even though, the business side has changed radically. The craft side is still pretty much the same, so that's good.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's why people even ask me a lot of times, like they assume record contracts change dramatically, or publishing deals change dramatically, or management deals. They don't. They really don't, because the essentials are always the same. It's just, but with record, but there's certain things like digital kinds of configurations and things like that that have come along. So certainly the record contracts have to cover that, but there's not a lot of massive changes I've found to these standard forms.
Yeah, well, there's also stuff that needs to be included now that wasn't necessary before, especially like we were just talking about the deep fakes and AI kind of stuff that, how do you protect yourself against that kind of stuff, or how do you license that, or what do you do with that?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think we're all going to try to look to see what happens with these major celebrities and use that as sort of the template.
Is there any precedent that you've seen yet on that? Or?
No, no, not yet. No. I mean, the major labels they don't control the name and likeness of the artist. Like, Jay-Z owns his own trademark and image, but the way it's used on things like records, they would have an exclusive on that, and they don't want, people making fake Jay-Z records. But I mean, so it's weird, because I mean, it's really a battle between, artists and labels and publishers with AI. So, but we have to let them fight those battles, because we're all just little people. We kind of have to wait and see what happens.
Yeah, because like with plagiarism, especially, that was one thing we touched upon last time we spoke, where at this point, you can just put your Shazam up there, and Shazam will find just about anything that sounds like anything else. And it's almost too easy to find something that feels like copyright infringement, even though it is an original work that, perhaps, like if I wrote a song and I've never heard something that sounds like it, but then Shazam picks it up and says, no, it sounds sort of like this other song. And, that could get really strange, because I never knew that, or, whatever.
Well, I mean, it's only a problem if it's almost an exact replica, though, right? I mean, if it's similar, there's tons of songs that are similar. Are you telling me that it's flagging things if it's just similar as being infringement?
That's what it seems to be. And,
Mm.
especially now with AI, because AI basically takes things that already exist and, just regurgitates it. So,
Yeah, well, you're right. They definitely do. But I mean, just even me before AI, I would work with a lot of artists sometimes who would create sync music, and they were trying to take a popular sound or a popular artist sound and just change it enough where, they could get away with it and still get the sync by just, just being right on the edge of similarity, but just different enough, So that's been going on a long time.
yeah. Have you found that line has changed as far as where it becomes plagiarism, and it's
No, not really. I mean, because I'm not really a litigator, I don't really get involved although I'm involved with a case right now. I hope it does not become a case, but it's a client of mine who's a producer writer, and there's a very famous female artist that you all know of, and who has a brand new record coming out soon, and she definitely ripped off my client, and they use the same producer too. So that I know that's the linkage there. I don't think she's guilty of it. She probably just accepted the track and put her vocal on it. But unfortunately, it's the same. So, you know, we're going to have to go to her and her label and give them a comparison and see if they'll give my guy a writer credit, because he certainly deserves it. But we'll see what happens. You know, the record's coming out in a couple of weeks. We were just going to wait for it to come out. But that's because, you know, I'm willing to write it's such a blatant thing, and I think it's only going to require a notice letter from me and if they reject that, well, they're going to have to hire an attorney to do a lawsuit, which I cannot do. But most of the time, I don't get involved in those things because it's just too hard. Copyright cases are really hard to prove.
Yeah, I can suck up.
And even if you can, you have to, if you're forced to go to court, you have to use, it's federal court, so you have to use a federal court litigator. There's different rules and regulations, and you know, and you have to pay some lawyer a tremendous amount of money, which most people can't afford, or find somebody that's going to work on a contingency. And no lawyer is going to do that unless they think there's like at least $1 million at stake. Otherwise, it's not worth their bother.
Yeah.
So, you know, it kind of puts most things just don't get to that next level, because it might even be actual infringement, but there's really no damage to the originator yet, you know, and it's just, there's not enough at stake. So people just unfortunately, you just kind of have to just go on or wait and see if something happens with that song. And then later, maybe it's worth pursuing. But I don't know. I mean, it's probably going to come up more with AI, Jimmy, you're right. But I've found in my career, it's not as prevalent as people think it is. You know, it's like every time I speak on one of these things, people are asking about infringement, but I just don't see it happening that often, or at least not at the level where somebody's really getting ripped off big time. Because even if somebody rips you off, because if even somebody does that, what sound alike, you have to, you know, if you can't prove intentional infringement and get the statutory damage, which is that 150,000 thing you hear about, if you can prove intentional, because a lot of times it's unintentional, then you can only collect what your damages are. So somehow you have to prove that this version forced you not to make any money, and that's so too speculative. You know, I don't know how you prove what money you lost.
Yeah, and in fact, it might actually help generate revenue, because somebody will say, well, hey, that sounds like a song I've heard before. And then people will look for that other song, and that could,
well, that's one. Yeah, I mean, one positive side to it. Well, and it's the same thing as like, you know, giving somebody a free sync license. I wouldn't recommend it. I think you should always get paid something. But let's just say you're brand new and some show wants to use your music, but they won't pay you. It might be worth doing because your music is going to be heard, and it might open up other opportunities. I mean, people will always pitch that promotional thing to you, but sometimes it's valid.
Yeah. Well, you know, like the one that always comes to mind is Vanilla Ice, right? He sampled Under Pressure, and you know, that was a big deal. But a lot of people never even heard of Under Pressure, you know, from Queen.
Wow. Yeah, they did. And in those days, that was like right when people started knowing that sampling, you're supposed to, because there was that period of time. I mean, this is going way back, right? That's 30 years ago, where some people still didn't know you had to get permission. But I think he probably knew, or his people knew. They just did it anyway and just dealt with the consequences later. So it worked out fine for him because he became a huge super. He's still making money. Somebody told me he just was playing some festival and they paid him like $100,000. Show up.
Vanilla Ice.
Yeah.
He played a Trump rally not that long ago. I think it was one of the Trump kids' birthday parties. I saw him on the news. So
yeah, he's living off that one. He's living off that one song, which was really just based on an infringement. But I have a feeling, and I don't know the details of that, but he probably was. That was Queen and David Bowie. So I think, right, Under Pressure. So he probably had to give them 50% of the copyright. I'll bet, maybe more. I mean, because that one a couple of years ago when that that rapper that died that made that song Lucid Dreams. Do you know who I'm talking about? Anybody? Anyways, he ripped off Sting. This was only a couple of years ago, but it was a huge song. And then Sting, he didn't get clearance, and Sting sued him, and Sting ended up getting 85% ownership of the song, when if he would have cleared it properly, Sting maybe have gotten 20-25%. I couldn't even tell there was an infringement, but I guess if you really know Sting's music, you could. But he didn't clear it properly. But the song was huge.
Juice
And then the
WRLD,
guy,
is that what you're talking
Juice
about?
WRLD, yeah, Juice WRLD, Juice
Oh
WRLD,
yeah,
right,
yeah,
right,
that's right.
yeah. I listened to the two songs. I couldn't even hear it, but anyway, I mean, what I learned from that was, if you don't clear it properly and on time, that was an intention. I guess it was an intentional kind of thing. So Sting was like, "Hey, I'm either going to sue you, or you give me 85%." Okay, and I guess that's what happened. Yeah, 80. I mean, that's a pretty hefty penalty. Because, well, I mean, if he just would have cleared it properly, then I'm sure they could have worked out like way less than that.
And do you think that people who use popular, well-known artists' music on their TikTok and Instagram videos, I mean, have they been gone after very much, or because people are violating those copyrights all the time, it seems.
Well, from what I understand, TikTok had made a deal with Universal, Warner's, and Sony. By the way, they're having an issue with Universal now, where Universal, Warner's, and Sony gave them the right to use anything in their catalog in the background.
Really?
So it allowed these TikTokers to do it, but the TikTokers are only making 15 to 30-second videos, so it isn't like a full-on song, right? I don't think you're not even allowed to make more than a 60-second video on TikTok if it's got music in it. So I guess it wasn't, it was just like a snippet, and it wasn't. So it wasn't, and it had been cleared in the sense that none of that money ever seems to trickle down to the artist from the majors, even though they say it does. But I noticed Universal recently just pulled that blanket license, they call it. So now TikTok's not allowed to use any Universal music for now. I'm sure they're going to work something out, but that I think that's how they get it. That's how that gets around it. Yeah, because otherwise it would be getting takedown. There'd be a takedown every time. Yeah. And it happens more often. It's more. I found it's more likely to happen on YouTube. Seems like things get taken down a lot more on YouTube for some reason.
Well, YouTube has a very formal procedure to take things down, and so I mean,
They sure do.
Yeah, you can. I've had 3 things taken down that were, people used my song when they shouldn't have, and so.
But you just had to claim infringement, and then did they buy into it, or did the other side challenge it?
No, because I sent them the copy of the copyright.
Okay. Because what happens sometimes, if the other side challenges it, then YouTube and these other platforms will put it back up because they don't know who's right, and they're not a judge and jury. So they'll then, if that's what happens, then they keep it up. And that's what I found. I'm not saying all the time, but that's been my experience some of the time. And then it puts you in a position where you have to sue. And it's not, again, it doesn't balance out to not worth it at that stage.
Yeah, or it wouldn't be worth it to go that far. But so far, in fact, there was one. This guy claimed, "Oh, it's a parody account," So I was using it in a parody sense, and you can't touch that, blah blah blah. And I don't know if he took it down because I asked him, or if YouTube went after him. But he did take it down. So
good.
Yeah.
Well, that's why people will say parody and fair use. Sometimes it's valid, but most of the time, I think it's just an excuse.
Yeah.
People use. But I don't know. I mean, that's really why I don't get involved much in infringement matters, because it's too gray,
Yeah.
And I don't really enjoy. I mean, I like being in the music business because I love music, and I enjoy working with positive things.
Sure.
I hate all this battling and arguing and
I wonder if I could ask a question.
Sure.
Yeah.
Hmm?
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. Talking about parody, something I do occasionally is I will write like parody versions of old popular songs, and I have one I've been working.
How old?
Oh, like in this case, 60s.
60s. Okay.
Yeah, there's one that I've wondered whether I should, put it on streaming or not. So I did a little research on parody rights. There is some opinion that says as long as you are just doing a parody of a song, it's free, it's fair use. However, if the parody is satire designed to make a social or political comment, which I think mine qualifies as, that it's more complicated than that. So I just wondered what your opinion on that was.
It's too complicated. It's case by case. I can't really decipher when it's right, when it's wrong. That's why, from what I understand, Weird Al always gets permission from the underlying artist, because he doesn't want, even though he could probably 9 times out of 10 get away with it legally, he doesn't want to take the chance. Number one. Number two, I think he wants to respect the artist's rights. So they give him permission so they don't get mad about it, because he makes them look silly sometimes. But from what I understand, the underlying theme is usually, or factor, because there's a list of factors. Those cases, you'll see there's factors courts will look at. The main one is, are you making money off of your version? If you are, to the damage or the detriment of the original author, that's where you're going to have problems sometimes. If you're just doing a parody just for news or satire, but you're not really trying to make money for your pocket, line your own pockets, then it's more likely to get through. That's one rule of thumb I can tell you. But most of the time when we're making music, we're trying to make money. But sometimes people are just doing it for educational uses or things like that. You know what I mean? So that's just something to keep in mind. Or you could always argue that too. If somebody comes after you, like, well, I'm not really trying to commercialize this, but I don't know if that's always a valid argument.
See, that's one of the things that
are you just doing it for fun? Just for fun? Like, is this your
Yeah,
hobby?
just for fun. Just for fun. But, I've considered releasing it on streaming, not under my own name, but under a side project name that I use sometimes, just so that I could direct my friends to it.
Yeah. Well, and I think the problem is, if it's a famous song and it's controlled by one of those majors, let's just say it's Universal, they've already got all that metadata out there. So the instant that goes up, it probably is on their radar and probably gets automatic. Even with AI, it gets taken down. But then again, maybe it will just stay up and slide under the radar. I don't know. I mean, you really have nothing to lose by putting it up if you recorded it. Worst case, it'll get taken down. But but on certain platforms, if you have too many things taken down, they kind of, you're put in jail and they won't let you keep posting. Or I think that's certainly true for YouTube. I don't know about Spotify so much, but I think Spotify can take. I know I've had clients that, unfortunately, they got suckered into like buying those bots to try to promote their music, and they thought it was legit because there's people that advertise, hey, we'll promote your music and we use these bots, but it's totally legal and cool, and well, it's really not, and then Spotify will, that's like, oh, well, that's in violation of their rules. So they take your account down, and then you lose all your numbers. And even if it goes back up, say you had 100,000 views or streams, now it starts from 0 again. So that's not good. I don't know, has anybody else encountered what I'm talking about? Because I know there's these promoters it's just like you used to be able to pay people to scan barcodes in a back room to get to get on SoundScan to chart. It was fake.
Yeah, some of those patterns are easy to spot and some aren't. Yeah, and when it comes to software, because when we did the UBloom song contest, and it was very obvious. Myself and this other guy had to actually weed through the obvious fakes, and they're when you got one IP address and they've put in, they voted for a song 100 times, and things like that, and there's a lot of metadata you can see it's coming from the same person. So,
well, were you evaluating songs just on the basis of the song itself, or based on some of the the numbers or the popularity of a song?
Well, this was a song contest where people would actually win money. This was again one of these U Bloom things, and again, Bob Geldof and Nigel Grange, which are two very, well-known people, were reviewing the songs ultimately, and
Okay.
we would filter them before they would get to them. But what that did, which surprised me, was some of the submissions you would get would be clearly bogus, and we were weeding them out, and it took a while to figure out how to do that. But once you see the patterns, it becomes very obvious from a software perspective.
Oh, I see. So you're saying whoever uploaded the track, it may have not come from a person per se. It was somebody that was uploaded.
Well, this is more like voting. So in other words, if the same
Oh, it was
person's
for
voting over
votes,
and over
votes.
again,
Got it.
they're the same IP, their screen size on their computer's the same, all this kind of stuff.
I see.
You get all this data, that's about the person's computer and that who's voting and what browser.
So
they're using
so were you able to somehow weed through that and try to figure out who was
we knocked
legit?
out a whole lot of stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
But were sometimes though, were you were you like listening to something going, wow, this sounds horrible. How could it have this many votes? Or was it,
No.
or were you not doing that? Okay.
No, we weren't even. No, that wasn't the issue. The issue was the patterns. Yeah. In that case.
Well, and unfortunately with AI, there's more of that stuff's going to go on. I just don't
Yeah.
know. I don't know.
When you look at
Because
song
I know
contests-
now you really have a, I mean, sometimes it really is hard to tell what's real and what's fake.
Yeah, that's true. I do have a different question, which is, in your experience, who actually is now, because there's so many changes these days, who is paying what you would say would be the best royalties between, let's say, Spotify, YouTube, Apple Music, etc.?
Well, from what I understand, Tidal pays the best streaming rates. Tidal.
Okay.
I don't know if anybody's on Tidal platform.
Don't know it that well.
Yeah, well, that's Jay-Z owned company.
Yeah. Okay.
But it's been going maybe 15 years now. But it's one of the smaller ones, but all the big artists, of course, Beyonce, etc. And there's some big hip hop artists on there for sure.
Right.
But I heard they pay a higher rate, and in Europe they pay higher rates for some reason than they do in the United States. Like Spotify pays a higher rate in Europe than they do in the United States. The same company. I don't understand why.
It's probably European regulations or something. Yeah.
Yeah, it must be, but I don't really know if it's a material difference between any of these. It's sort of like when you're picking a independent distributor. I went to a TuneCore event last night, which was pretty good. In Burbank, there's a place called Projector Space. I don't know if anybody's ever been to it. It's right near the mall in Burbank. I'd never seen it before, but it's a pretty nice space. And they had some speakers come in. There were some BMI people there, YouTube people there, TikTok people there. And then they had like a mixer afterwards. So, but TuneCore was putting it on. So, and then I noticed all of a sudden I'm getting all these blasts. I'm not going to South by Southwest this year, but on my LinkedIn, all these people that work at TuneCore all of a sudden are telling me about these panels they're putting on at South by Southwest. So all of a sudden TuneCore seems like they're really trying to, stay ahead of the curve, because there's TuneCore and DistroKid and CD Baby, and which to me, they're all interchangeable pretty much. I mean, as far as what they do, I don't know if anybody else has different experiences with them, but it's sort of like that with streaming. I can't really tell if one's that much different than the other.
The new Spotify pay for America anyway, CD Baby is the lowest rung, and TuneCore and DistroKid are a rung above that. And then
So say that again. What's the order? The top five?
The main, the highest money goes to bands on major labels. The second highest amount per stream goes to the bands on that collective of indie labels like 4AD and Play It Again Sam and all the big indie labels. Level 3 tier is TuneCore.
And there's a collective that they all belong to.
Yeah, I forget what that's called.
Chris, do you remember what the name of it is? Yeah,
no, I can't remember. But they're like the second tier of payment. And big bands like the War on Drugs and Kurt Vile and stuff like that are part of those Matador records
Yeah,
and stuff like that.
yeah.
And then
480 Matador,
the
same.
bottom payment goes to CD Baby, and they're no longer going to pay you if you don't make $5 in a year.
Hmm.
And there are people that I've run into a couple of Dudniks who've taken themselves off the biggest streaming platform because they're not getting paid anything. I'm like, well, if you weren't making $5 a year, no one was listening anyway. So it's like
Well,
saying,
okay.
in the end of the CD era, when Best Buy was the only place you could buy a CD, it's like saying, I'm going to take my CDs out of Best Buy because they put them near the microwaves. It's like,
But to me, if they're
doesn't make any
paying
sense.
people digitally, which I, I I think all these people just pay digital. I can't imagine they're cutting checks anymore. I don't. There's no bookkeeping, so why can't they pay you even if they only owe you $5?
If you make $4.93 a year from streaming, are you really going to break chops about $4.93
Well,
a
no,
year?
no, but why can't they? Why I don't understand why they can't pay you if they owe you a penny. Why don't they pay it? I mean, I can understand it if they had to hire a bookkeeping and they had to have mailers and cutting checks because there's administrative costs involved.
400,000 songs a week get added to Spotify. It
Yeah.
is, and 350,000 of them people forget about or never notice to begin with.
Is it well, was it the last statistic I heard, did you say per month? Or I
Per
heard it was
week.
like 100, yeah, per week.
It's, yeah,
I heard somebody say maybe it was even at the taxi thing, like over 100,000 a day. Or maybe tracks uploaded to the internet in general, not
right.
necessarily to Spotify, but just I would assume most of those or a lot of those do go to Spotify.
Yeah.
But
And
that's just an insane amount of music. I don't
yeah, and that's why they
understand.
can't afford, they're just going to turn the computer off. If you don't generate $5 a month, they're not even going to recognize you.
Oh, but here's something that I know is going on, or is probably it could be a problem, is AI generated music getting uploaded to Spotify? Because if somebody could just create music all day, millions of tracks, which I guess is possible, what I mean, it just floods everything.
It
I
does.
don't know how they filter that stuff out, because if it's legitimate music, how can they stop it if it's
Well, the
really
two things
music?
that they stopped is they stopped paying because there was a band and they made a real big deal about it and got a lot of press that their songs were their songs, but every 30 seconds it reset as another song on Spotify. So their 12-song album was actually like 90 songs. So they got paid for 90 streams every time
Hmm.
someone listened to the album. And Spotify went, no, 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 no more of that. You got to have a 90-second song to get paid for it. And then the other thing was they're cutting down on bots. I ran across this guy a few weeks ago who's like, "Oh, Spotify took all my songs down, and I'm trying to get them re-added." And I looked on his page, and he had released a song 3 days earlier. He had 795 monthly listeners, and 3 days, and 85,000 spins. I'm like,
Hmm.
dude, you're paying fucking bots. I mean, your shit's gonna get taken down again. What are you thinking? Well, it's not fair. I'm like, you're cheating. You're cheating. You're stealing fractions of a penny at a time from a multinational, multi-billion dollar conglomerate, and they're going to crack down and bust your ass. You're cheating. And
Well, can you? I mean, I'm not an artist, and a lot of you are. What's the mentality of wanting to cheat? Because long term, it doesn't get you anywhere.
what I've run across in the Byzantine number of artists that I deal with is it makes them feel more important to be recognized, even if it's by a computer program. It makes them look more esteemable. Well, when they go out of the house and they do their, well, I've got 85,000 listeners a month on my Spotify,
But when
84,000
but when
of
they
them
get
are
in, but when they
bots.
get unmasked by the decision makers, or the platforms or the labels or whatever, they're blackballed. It's because for what they did, it's
If
over for them.
criminals knew they would get caught, there would be a lot less crime.
Oh, I know, but I'm
Also,
but I'm but
yeah,
I think most artists really are just they want their music to be heard and loved, and they can make a living, and I get it, but obviously it doesn't work out that way for everybody. But I just didn't know I didn't know how many, like, people, if there's 10 artists, how many have the mentality of trying to cheat their way to the top? I wonder.
It's usually, in my experience, only 1 out of 10. But when there's 80,000 people a week listing music, that 10% becomes a lot.
Yeah.
And it's
all I know is if they call me up and I can tell that they're cheating, I don't want to be involved with them.
no,
And
nor
I'm
do
sure
I.
you're the same way.
Yeah, I'm not going to work with anyone who's doing that. It's
I mean, because I'd rather somebody who doesn't have an aunt, but they're legitimate and they, hopefully they've got the tools and a lot of potential, and you can tell they're willing to work and do what they need to do legitimately. I'd much rather work with somebody like that than somebody who's obviously faked it. And I don't know. And it's weird if you meet somebody and they don't think they're doing it. So I've met a few people like that. They don't think they're doing anything wrong either. It's just a game that's part of the game to them.
yeah, you're absolutely right. And it's like crossing the Rubicon of legitimacy. Once you step into that, buying spins or paying a manager a monthly retainer to keep them on board, the manager is the one that crossed the Rubicon of legitimacy, because their whole purpose is to just get somebody to give them money on the first of the month, not to accomplish anything.
Well,
So,
and I guess there's probably the rare circumstance, which I can't think of right now, where somebody actually, got lucky and one of their songs actually became a hit, even though they had to fake it to a certain point. And then all of a sudden they were legitimate and everybody just forgot or never even knew what got them there.
that might very well be the case.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose that's the hope. And maybe that does happen now and then. I mean, I think that's why, we know you've had artists on major labels, there's promotion going on, indie promotion going on, payola going on. That's what they're trying to do to break they're trying to give them visibility, and they hope eventually the public grasps it.
Well, I've been working on something with these independent playlist people where I've been playing the dummy and going, golly, how can you get my song on all these playlists? How can you get my song on these radio stations? Well, for $100, I can get you on 10 radio stations. And I screenshot everything, and I got a whole folder full of screenshots. And then I'm like, golly, I just spoke to my brother-in-law who works for the FBI, and he said, you're committing a federal crime. That's called payola. And, and of course, I can't use a Southern accent when you type, but I just play it like a rube. And I think I'm going to send him the screenshots, and then instantly your account's blocked. You can't communicate with them anymore because they know what they're doing is wrong. But there's somebody that, and I went, and if I talk too much, tell me to shut up. I went to this thing about 15 years ago in Hollywood where they were looking for DJs, or so the ad said. And I went in and I was all excited, like, yeah, I've done everything else. Let's try being on the radio. And they said, you sound great. And they brought me in a meeting and they said, we have these 4 time slots we want you to fill. 3 a.m. to 4 a.m. on a 50-watt station in Riverside, 2 to 3 a.m. on a 15-watt station in Irvine and stuff. And I'm like, well, I know I can come here and cut the show, but how am I supposed to make any money? And they're like, well, you sell ads. I'm like, who the hell's going to advertise on a 15-watt station at Irvine at 3 a.m. on a Wednesday? And then they had this most successful DJ in their program come in and cross his arms and say, well, what you really do is you sell the spots where you play the songs. They couldn't actually say that. They had one of their DJs say that. And that's when I just raised my hand and said, I didn't come here to get involved in committing crimes. Sorry. And they're like, well, you're just stupid. I'm like, okay, I won't be going to jail. And this one guy, like, he drove in a Range Rover and he was just selling slots. And it's to those independent radio promoters that will tell artists, well, I got you on this station, I got you on this station, I got you on this station. And it won't tell you what time, it won't tell you how many watts the station is. And, the guy will say, okay, I got $1,000. Let's give 500 of it. So let's get 100 spins for $5 each and pay these guys $5 each for spins. And then he makes $500 a month and he gets 10 clients going and he's making enough to buy a Range Rover. And these radio DJs are selling these time slots on these middle of the night, stations in the middle of nowhere. And it's all run out of this building right near Zanku Chicken and on Sunset Boulevard in Normandy. and it's just, it's not as tasty as the garlic sauce, that's for sure. So
Well, by the way, just in the last couple of weeks, I don't know if anybody else read that in the trades where all the major labels have cut back on their radio promotion staffs like considerably. They let like 75 to 80% of them go. So that means to me, that's the only reason you'd go with the major labels because you have the opportunity for major radio promotion. Now, does that mean you're just gonna have to go get an indie to do it, or is radio just doesn't mean anything anymore? I don't
remember,
understand.
remember Black Wednesday during the pandemic when they laid off 700 radio DJs and programming people around the country?
I
Now,
don't. I don't.
okay, it happened. iHeartMedia has one person programming all the alternative rock stations. They own 40.
Mm.
So there's 39 less jobs. They have one person promoting all the top 40 stations. They own 60. So there's 59 less jobs. So since there's that many less people that the labels have to deal with, why do they need to pay a big giant staff? They just need one person who can handle a couple of genres. And
okay. Well, I just didn't know. Number one, was it that, or was it just radio just isn't even relevant anymore? Because some people just tell me everybody's just going off of streaming numbers and things like that now to make decisions to add.
Radio is still the biggest way to get a song heard because there's all those
I would think so.
Traffic and all those people at the doctor's office, and they want the radio on, and not people arguing about who's going to stream what and playing things with curse words and stuff like that. So radio is still very big, but Howard Stern was right when he left 20 years ago for Sirius. He's like, I'm going to bury you guys. Radios are going to be worthless. And the value of the stations is, the Loop in Chicago used to be worth $500 million. A Christian organization bought it 6 years ago for 20 million. And that's the country's biggest Christian rock station.
Wow.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, Ben, I have a question. In terms of exclusive contracts, in your experience, how long would an exclusive last? In other words, is it the kind of thing where they want it in perpetuity all the time, or are people willing to say 5 or 10 years, that kind of thing?
Is it, but are you talking about where you're creating some content that you're licensing exclusively?
Yeah, licensing a song specifically for film or TV or whatever. Yeah.
Well, the problem for that is, if a song gets placed, there's two kinds of terms that come along. If you're, say, going to one of these sync placement companies or sync rep or a music library, they want to have a period of time to pitch your music, but it's usually 1 to 5 years whether it's exclusively or non-exclusively, but in this case, you're saying it's exclusive. Only they can pitch your music for film, TV commercials. But if they can place a song in a TV show, it's going to be in perpetuity because that show is going to exist forever, and it's going to be rerun forever, and it's going to be able to where people can download and stream it forever. So the term of the license of the sync itself is always going to be in perpetuity. They used to a long time ago, and you've probably remember that, where you'd hear music in shows. And back in the old days, I don't think they were thinking far enough ahead. They would do like a 10-year sync license, and then there's something in the sync license saying after 10 years, if we want to continue to use your music in our show, we have to pay you another fee, or we have to take it off. And a lot of people started asking for too much money. So a lot of these shows would have to strip off the music and replace it, which was a pain in the butt. And also it kind of sucked for the artists that got their music taken off. But I remember a perfect example of that if the Golden Girls, the earlier shows had Andrew Gold singing "Thank You for Being a Friend," but if you'll notice, the later episodes have somebody replaying the song. It's a different vocalist, or it's just the keyboard by itself, somebody else playing it, because they probably couldn't have. Andrew Gold probably asked for way too much money to renew it, so now they make it in perpetuity. When I've been doing these sync licenses, always in perpetuity, but not for the pitching part, but the placement itself, if that makes any sense, because otherwise they'd have to come back and beg you to renew it, or they just don't want to deal with that stuff anymore. So that's become the standard.
That I can understand. I guess I'm more thinking of your song getting trapped in limbo and them doing nothing with it. In other words, after 5 years, if they haven't done something,
Well,
I
then it
mean,
should
are
come
there
out.
usually
If
exit clauses?
well, yeah,
If
but
they're-
if it's a, let's just say it's a 5-year placement period,
right,
after 5 years, they're not supposed to have the right to pitch it anymore. So it would automatically stop. But
is that right?
if well, well, yeah, that's why there's a term on it.
Okay,
But if you're concerned about it, I always try to put in any agreement that has a long term on it. That,
okay,
you know, if something doesn't happen within, you know, a year, 3 years, 5 years, whatever, you can get the song back, your rights back. And the only
right,
usually
okay,
they're open to that. With the exception of if they're paying you a big bag of money for
right,
the rights to continue to do it, and you know, and that's, we know that that's pretty rare, right?
yeah,
So most of the time they want to get it for free with the promise that they'll split the money when they do a placement.
yeah,
So yeah, try to, if there's not a specific term in there, try to, I mean, to me it's always better to keep it short, and maybe it can be renewed mutually. So if you think they're doing a good job, if they want to continue to go, it's mutual. Or it might say something like it's a 3-year term, and then it'll automatically roll over for another year at a time, another year at a time, unless one of the parties gives notice within like 30, 60 days before the term's up. So then you just have to, excuse me, make sure you keep track
mhm,
in your calendar of like, oh, well, I should check to see if these people are doing anything, because it's going to roll over. But I've seen it that way too.
mhm,
And if it just is one of these open-ended things, which I've found are pretty rare, by the way, yeah, you have to put some kind of performance clause in there, where if they
okay,
don't make you a certain amount of money, because they, you know, they could get a placement in a student film, pays no money. What good is that? You need to
yeah,
make some money. So, you know, you should earn at least $1,000 by the end of 2 years, $2,500 by the end of 2 years, whatever it is, 5,000, I don't know,
yeah,
but some kind of, and if you don't, well, then it automatically comes back.
okay,
That's something you usually have to build in. I mean, that's a lot of times what, as a lawyer, you know, when people are hiring me, you know, I'm telling you so you can do it yourself. But say you didn't know that, that's the kind of stuff I would try to add into the contract.
mhm,
You remember Tool? Everybody, I mean, how can you not? They're still, they just played the Forum last week.
Yeah,
They were signed.
sold out, sold out.
Oh yeah, they selling out all over the place still. Haven't put out a new record in a long time. Uh, Golly, it looks like 15 years. They were signed to, oh, well, pardon me, 6 years. They were signed to a label called Zoo Records, and Zoo Records signed them when they used to put shows on upstairs in a loft on Hollywood Boulevard. And there was, you know, were they too heavy for the grunge people? Were, you know, they were definitely too heavy for the glam rock people that were still around in 92 when the record came out, the first record.
They were Green Jello or Green Jelly before, right?
No, they weren't. They had shared, they were roommates with Green Jello.
Oh, I see, I see. I
But
thought they shared members or something.
well, Maynard used to run around in his underwear and a pig mask and stuff. Yeah, with Green Jello, they
Okay.
were like a theatrical group. And the guy signed them to a contract that said, if we don't renew the contract by such and such a date, you become free agents. And I remember everyone in town kind of knew that. And the month leading up to that contract, the guys in Tool were just nervous wrecks. They, you know, I used to see Danny at the gym playing basketball, and people were like screaming at him because he kept screwing up. And I'm like, hey, man, the dude's got a lot on his mind. Give him a break. Give him a break. And Maynard was like walking around kind of shaking. I saw him, and I'm like, I know what's up. I ain't going to say anything. And the day after, like at 12:01 a.m. the
Well,
next day, when Zoo did not pick up the option on their record and they became free agents, they did another one of those warehouse parties and got a lawyer, and I believe set up a distribution deal where they were like their own label as far as owning a lot more of the record. And the guy's dead now. I can't remember his name. I'd remember it if someone said it, the head of Zoo Records. And it cost him literally 8 figures in income on the next couple of Tool records. Back when people still, they
Well,
did those
yeah.
expensive CDs with the lenticular covers and everything that were like $5 extra back then and stuff.
Well, by the way, what labels normally do now, or even as long as I've been in the business, generally, and you can try to take it out if as a lawyer, but it'll usually say, we have the right to make 3 albums, right? So we'll make the first album, Okay, and then within 2 years of that time, we have to pick up the option for the second album. But if we forget to do it, or we don't give you written notice, the term keeps going until you tell us that we forgot, and then we'll in writing, and then we have 10 more days to decide. And what happens is most artists never read their contracts, so it just goes into a limbo period, and the label just keeps the artist under contract until one or the other does something. But apparently in the Tool situation, either that was taken out of the agreement or was never in it. But most agreements I see from labels always have that in it. Publishing deals too. So you have to be really careful about that. You might think your term's over, but it's actually in a limbo phase.
Lou Maglia was the guy's name.
Yeah, I remember his name. I didn't know him.
Yeah.
But a friend of mine who's still in the business named Matt Marshall. Does anybody know Matt Marshall?
Know the name.
He signed a lot of cool acts. He signed he signed back in Zoo. He signed Girlfriend, Sick of Myself, Matthew. What's you know who I'm talking about? Anyway, he signed some big acts, more indie acts. I'm totally spacing on the bands he signed. Some pretty big indie rock acts, but he now works at Concord, and they're still he works. But 30 years ago, he was working for Zoo. But now he's married to Carrie Ann Marshall, who's the co-CEO of Warner Chappell Music.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if anybody knows her. She's pretty high up. So they're like a power couple now. But I've known him for 30 years, and he's always been an A&R, signed cool people. But that was his first job, was at Zoo, and he was telling me a lot of stories about what Zoo was like. It was like a zoo, I guess. But why? Yeah. Anyway, you would know some of the artists he signed. He did not sign Tool, though. He didn't have anything to do with that one.
Okay, well,
By the way, if you ever have some cool music, Matt Marshall is a really good guy, and he's at Concord, still as an A&R guy, and he's one of the people that actually listens to stuff. So. And he's pretty accessible, or in my experience.
cool.
Oh, by the way, the other thing about Matt, if you're into the history of the music business, his dad was a guy named Paul Marshall, who was a New York-based attorney in the 60s, who was one of the Beatles lawyers. If you read a lot of the Beatles books, you'll see Paul Marshall's name pop up quite a bit. So, he actually comes from a family that's worked in the business a long time.
Cool. Okay, well, if anybody has just another question, otherwise we should get into some listening, huh, Steve?
Sure. Yeah, we've got 4 or 5 songs.
Okay.
Let's see.
Has anybody else got one more question, or Jenna's been sitting there quietly, just kind of like,
Okay. So
Well, one last Ben question, and then Stephen, reminder if you're in stereo. Ben, so your current client, who you said a famous artist ripping off his song, did he copyright it? I mean, does that carry any weight these days?
Yeah. Well, it does in the sense that if you want to actually sue, in federal court, you do have to have the copyright. You have to register the copyright to take advantage of the court system. But it doesn't change anything and that's if you're trying to do federal court. I mean, there's state, you can still. The thing about the Copyright Act is like I said, there's certain statutory damages you can get and take advantage of and have your attorney's fees paid and stuff like that. If you actually have registered, that's one of the reasons why you would register a song. Of course, most of the time, hopefully you'd never get into a litigation situation, but it doesn't change the fact that you have a claim or don't have a claim just because you didn't register it. But you have to prove that you created it. And then you can make money in other ways, just the damages that you can prove. They could never take that kind of claim away from you, but you get some automatic damages if you actually have a registered copyright. And it's also bona fide, or the presumption is that you wrote you own the song. You don't have to worry about proving it because you've got the registration, that then the other side has to disprove. So, which is, an uphill battle sometimes. So, I mean, people ask me a lot of times, is it worth registering your song because you got to pay a fee? Well, that's some of the reasons why you'd want to do it. But, I don't see that many cases where you actually have to sue. Most of these cases are rare. But by the way, the artist I was talking about is Matthew Sweet. Does everybody remember him? Matthew Sweet?
Yeah. Yeah, he co-wrote some stuff with Susanna Hoffs recently,
He
right?
sure did. Yeah, they made a couple like covers records together.
Yeah.
But I remember there was a super group for a while called the Thorns that had Matthew Sweet in it, and I think some people like that. Maybe it was Jason Faulkner, maybe it was Sean Mullins. These type of guys were all like in a super group together. People like that. These singer-songwriter guys from that era, they all got together and made this killer album. But I don't know if anybody ever bought it.
Okay. So ready for listening, right, Jimmy? Okay.
And you got stereo going, right, Stephen?
We do. So
Okay,
let me
good.
do my.
And by the way,
share screen.
was I able? I mean, I kind of freeform here, but I wanted to make sure if anybody had any legal questions, or I wanted to make sure I didn't not answer them. So before we move on, I just wanted to make sure.
We'll probably have some towards the end, and then of course you can
Okay.
mention some things along the way, while we listen as well. So
Right.
All right.
We don't have too many songs tonight, so
Yeah.
there's always maybe a little. If something comes to somebody, ask a few questions after. Okay, so we'll bring up Jenna first, and this song is called "Love You Too," and so give me a moment. I share my screen.
did you want to say anything about it, Jenna?
I mean, not really. I can let the song speak for itself. Thanks. The song is worth a million words.
Da do do, do da do da do do do, da do do, da do do. One of a kind, you broke the spell. I saw the sign, shiny and new. I fell for you. Head over heels, you are fabulous for real. I'm taking the plunge, you could be the one. Not just the catch of the day, not just a passing phase. You got a hold on me in every way. I became. It's so easy to be happy. All I gotta do is think about you jumping and love me, yeah. Love me, say you do, and I will love you too. Da do do, do da do da do do do.
Was that a hand sign?
Yeah,
that
I
you-
mean, I know
Okay.
usually I think Jimmy says to like somehow.
Yeah, gotcha.
Signal,
Okay. I just wanted to make sure I was
Yeah.
reading you right. Okay.
Yeah, actually, really like that. I could have heard the whole thing, but I know usually we just stop at some point.
Right.
Well, feedback on that. There's lots of hooks in that song. I was really impressed. The person that made it's here somewhere, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
that's me.
Oh, hi. Yeah. Yeah, lots of
Hi.
hooks in that song. Great vocals and really clear vocals. So, I mean, to me, that's always really important where people can hear what you're singing and the lyrics are meaningful. So, this seems like something that could get synced and also played on the radio. So I was impressed by that. That's just, my thoughts on it.
I
Really
love
good.
that.
Yeah, really good. Do you have other songs that are like that, or is this like a one-off, a unique kind of thing?
Yeah, I released an album of, there was 10 songs in the album, and then I released 3 singles, and this was one of the singles I released.
So it's already been out as a single, yeah?
Well, yeah, I mean, independently, I'm a
Yeah,
nobody,
and did
so
it well, but
nobody's heard it.
well, here's the thing. I mean, you know,
I mean,
and
it's on the places, it's on Spotify and
okay,
you know all the places, but you know it gets it
I was
you
just
know it
curious
gets
to what
maybe a
kind of,
thousand spins a year.
okay. Well, that's to me, that's what I don't understand, because maybe it's just because there's too much music, because, you know, when something as good as that, you would think more people would react to it and it would somehow bubble up. Because I remember talking to you know, famous record exec many years ago, and maybe it was from a different era, but they were like, you can't hide a hit, or you know, something that's really good always rises to the top.
I don't
But I just
know.
but these
That's
days, I
not
think
been
there's,
my luck.
yeah, I just think there's too much music out there. That's why I didn't
Oh
like this thing.
yeah, and I'm yeah, I mean, and it's still video killed the radio star out there, except now it's TikTok killed the radio star. Like if you're not, you know, young and either super weird looking or super hot, or you've got great dance moves, like people just aren't really, or has if it hasn't made it into like a viral TikTok trend, people just aren't gonna hear
Yeah,
it and
no.
see it. The best like I'd love to get this song placed because I was going to say the songs that I have on Spotify and all that do the best, that get on playlists and you know people are sharing it, are the ones that have been in TV shows. Like the one that does the best for me is this song called Magic that was in The Good Witch. People have put it on like hundreds of
Okay.
playlists. So yeah, it needs some attention.
Well, yeah. I don't know. I mean, certainly the only, you know, way I can see getting around all the noise out there, and if you're not, you know, filling some of these categories that you think some people do just to get a quick hit, is through syncs, you know, because if something like that did get played, a theme song or in a big movie, because you know the problem with syncs sometimes, if it's just like a 15-second background, maybe people aren't, it's not going to jump out as much. But I mean, the song's good enough that it seems like it could lead to something if more people heard it. But you know, that's
I
just like
agree.
the pie. I know that's like the pie in the sky, and it happens on rare
Mhm.
occasions, but it's good enough that you know, it seems like it's definitely placeable to me. And because, and I'm not a music supervisor, but it's when I follow what they're doing, a lot of times it is female vocals with this kind of a sound, because it's palatable to the masses, you know.
Oh,
It's
for
not,
sure. And it's got like a timeless vibe,
yeah.
which
So I
is
don't know.
what
I
we were
mean, try
going
to
for.
think. So, you know, that's why I was asking if you had created more music like this. At least there's strength in numbers there, and you know, hopefully
Oh
you can
yeah, for sure.
get one of these days. Just don't give up. You know, somebody will. You know, because some of these music supervisors, even one of them was there last night at the TuneCore thing. This guy Adam Brodsky. Does anybody know him? Brodsky. He's been doing it for a while, but he was saying sometimes it's 2 or 3 years later that he finally gets a chance to listen to stuff and get back to people, and he likes it. Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, cool. Thanks.
Can I say one thing and ask one thing of the artist, or should I just shut up and listen tonight?
You can ask me as far as I'm
Yeah,
concerned.
you're
Go
welcome to.
ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, where are you putting the new music that you've released? Are you keeping it offline? Are you just keeping it on like a one-stop site? Or I'm looking at your Spotify page. And the second thing is, I tell everybody on your Spotify page, you should have the links to your social media in the bio section, because I heard the song and wanted to go follow you on Instagram and there's no link. So that
Oh,
was,
well, that's yeah, I didn't know that we could do that now, so I'll have to go update that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
okay. Well, glad I could help. Thank you.
thanks.
Okay,
By
next
the
up we
way,
have.
Chris is our guest speaker next month, just to let you know.
Okay. Next up we have Dan Marcus. This is called
Oh, the last artist. What's your name again?
Jenna Bryant.
I'm
Jenna Bryson.
Jenna
Bryson,
Bryson.
sorry.
Jenna Bryson. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Name is in the Zoom thing. Okay.
Oh yeah. Sorry, it's very tiny.
Yeah. Okay. So.
I don't know exactly what's going on with you and in me. Everything is so confusing, it's getting hard to see. You say you will and you say you won't. You say you do and you say you don't. Come on, babe, now we're down to the wire. There's just too much smoke and not enough fire. Too much smoke, not enough fire. You say you don't know what I want, but darling, I'm sure you do. Save the tea and save the coffee, 'cause all I want is you. You say you're fast and you say you're slow. You say to stop and you say to go. Come on, babe, now we're down to the wire. There's just too much smoke and not enough fire. Too much smoke, not enough fire.
Oh, and who's the artist on this again? I'm sorry.
This was Dan Marcus was the songwriter.
Oh,
And,
Dan's the songwriter. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Hi, I'm here.
Oh, Dan. So
Yeah, that's not me singing though. We'll
okay.
clarify that.
Are you playing? Are you playing the keys, or did somebody else doing that?
No, I'm not. I'm just the writer.
Okay.
The keys are being played by a guy named Bill Cantos. He's a great keyboardist around town. He plays with Herb Albert, a lot of other people.
Wow. And then, are you the sole writer on that, or is that collaboration?
Yes, I'm the sole writer on the song. Correct.
Yeah. Again, sound wise, again, the vocals are very clear, so that's a big plus. And I mean, I was trying to think, is it categorizing it? Is that considered more? Is it like jazz meets ragtime? What is the genre of that, or if you even care to categorize it? What does it fall?
I do. I care, and it's funny because this is one arrangement of the song. I consider it like kind of a 1940s kind of that kind of song, jazz of that era.
Mm-hmm.
But
like
song,
a big band kind of sort
that's
of.
how but I will mention that the song was recorded by a very sexy female group in Spain called the Pussycats, and they do a rock version of it. And,
wow.
And there's another version. There are two recorded versions of the song. One is another by a group called Sugar in the Gourd, which is like more of a folk thing. So anyway,
how are you getting these cuts?
Well, I had some other songs that were recorded in Spain through another artist.
Okay.
A guy named Ben Vaughn, and
I know Ben Vaughn is, yeah.
Oh, you know Ben? Okay, yeah, Ben's a good friend, and he used to put a song of mine on each album.
Oh,
and,
good.
And one became a single in Spain, and through that, this female group requested a song, so I sent him this one. So that's how that would happen.
Okay. And I was thinking, I didn't know who was trying to be the artist on these, because sometimes the version I'm hearing, that's the version, and sometimes people are just using that as a demo to try to get somebody else to record it. Because I was thinking if you could get someone like Bette Midler to do this song, they would probably be big, but it's just finding the right art. And certainly if you can find some sexy group over, and they're doing a rock version or some killer video, with attitude and all that stuff. And obviously in Europe, sometimes people gravitate towards different kind of music more, might respect it more in France or something. But I mean, the song itself, it's well structured and the lyrics are meaningful. So it's a little less mainstream than the prior one. So, but if you can find the right placement for it, I mean, sometimes maybe that is an advantage, because anybody that's trying to pick a song for this kind of a scene in a commercial or a TV show or a movie, this fits right in there. So I don't know. I mean, but it's quite good, and obviously if people are recording it, it has some meat to it. Other people are recognizing it too.
Yeah, I'll just mention
But I,
briefly.
yeah, I don't. But yeah, I can only say positive things about it. I don't have anything negative to say about it.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, I know it's a hard pitch. Just last thing I'll say, Ben, is I appreciate your comments. Is this arrangement was recorded intended for a film that was in post production for a scene in a Harlem nightclub, you know, and they liked it, but the film itself went into turnaround for a number of years, and et cetera. You know, but that was the goal anyway.
Well, yeah, that's the perfect scene for something like this. Yeah, but it's like, you know, you got to find the right person that knows
Right.
about it, that can place it there, and
Yes, tough one.
yeah,
Well, thank you.
yeah, you're welcome.
Okay, next up we have Dave Clausen. This is called Further Down This Road.
Thinking about the miles gone by, detours along the way, scenic views without a place to stay, interstates across the land, avenues without a name, dead-end streets not sharing any blame, singing tires spinning round. I can hear they've slowed down. You know that time will take me there, further down this road. Sights I have never seen, those who want to ride along, places I have stayed far too.
Oh, and the artist it's Dave, right?
Yeah.
Oh, hey, Dave. So you're here too, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, this is a little different than the other two, obviously. It's more I mean, I love rock guitar, so I got off on that. And this version, your version, has kind of more, to me anyway, more of like a 70s rock type of a vibe. I mean, the sound quality and even just the way because I listened to a lot of music from that era, so it reminded me of that. But I didn't know, is this sort of like a demo that because I can certainly hear even like a country artist doing this in a modern time, but is this your version you're trying to pitch, or is it just a demo to try to get some new artist to do it?
It's a demo. I mean, I don't have a budget, so I'm trying to learn music production and mixing and mastering and doing everything myself. So obviously I can tell it didn't have the polish of the other songs that we've heard tonight. But yeah, so a demo, just me doing everything.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, and then the lyrics have some meaning here. So if somebody takes the time to listen, it's just I was thinking, and the song actually gets better as it goes along. As we got deeper into it, I thought the song actually got better as you went. So the only comment I have about it is, and obviously historically songs had intros, long intros, whatever, but it just seems like these days nobody has any patience for intros. It's radio or even sync people, they're going to chop that out. So unless that's all they want is like that intro, a riff. But that and again, I never want to spoil somebody's music if that's part of it, but sometimes I think you have to keep that in mind when you're trying to pitch music, because a lot of these people just don't have a whole lot of patience. They like want you to get more to the chorus quicker or whatever it is. I don't know if other writers have any feedback on that, but that's just sometimes I hear that as feedback from like gatekeeper type people. But me, I grew up always hearing guitar, intros on rock songs. It was just part of it. And then you'd have a guitar break in the middle too. But you notice that's sort of gone away, maybe because, and TikTok's a big problem there because songs are so short now. People are used to two, maybe 3 minutes max on songs. So, I mean, it just depends what you're trying to do with the music. Ultimately, you just have to keep those kind of things in mind. But that song to me, I mean, I really think, because country is rock now. So if you could find some way to get a big country artist to hear it, or you might get a placement on something like that.
Thank you.
I don't know. Just thinking out loud there.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, that intro is long. I need to cut it in half. All right. Well, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay, this last one's mine. It's called Alleys of LA. And let's see here. Everybody's got an LA song, right?
This is called Alleys of LA.
Yes.
Okay. The kind you want to be in, or the kind you don't want to be in?
No, this is a positive alley.
Okay.
Cycle time, cool summer night. Look in the alley, left and right. But who is this that I now see dancing right in front of me? A couple arm in arm, turn round and round. There is magic here, they say, in this place they call LA. In a moment, all your dreams, they can come true. Didn't believe it all before. Even night becomes the day. In the jasmine-scented alleys of LA. Are they lovers or just good friends? A student teacher, well it depends. I raise my thumb and smile. No distraction while there is magic here, they say, in this place they call LA. In a moment, all your dreams, they can come true. Didn't believe it all before. Even night becomes the day in the jasmine-scented alleys of LA.
Yeah. Wow, that's all these songs are you never know what I'm going to expect, but so that's different than everybody else's too. But very, it's got the real catchy chorus on it. Kind of reminds me of I don't know if you like them, America. You like the band America?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it reminded me a lot of America. So, and I like everything America does with their guitars and their melodies and their harmonies, and so it kind of reminded me of something like they would do. But yeah, I mean, it's for what in that genre, I think it sounds really good, really good. But is that just like again, is that just considered pop rock or acoustic rock or adult rock? I don't even know how they categorize things anymore.
I mean, I would just call it a pop song, but
Pop, okay.
I mean, in terms of what I want to do with it, I'm always up for master sync type placements, and so this would be the kind of song where somebody's coming to LA for the first time or something like that, and they're just kind of landing on Sunset Boulevard or the Santa Monica Beach or somewhere and kind of gasping around, that sort of scene, I guess.
So, and how do you pitch your stuff, or does somebody pitch your stuff for you?
I'm on a number of the sites like Broadjam or Taxi, that kind of thing, and go to meetings, and try to meet music supervisors when possible, that sort of thing. So almost.
But how do you? But like, say you have this song,
Right.
and Taxi's helping you try to play. Like, do you have to like sort of keep track of maybe shows or music supervisors that might grab, or do you just rely on them and then they hopefully pick yours out of the bunch?
Well, usually Taxi or Broadjam or other websites have listings. They'll say, we want this kind of song with this kind of vibe. And they usually even give you some songs to listen to. Sometimes they'll say, we want something vintage, we want something very contemporary, we want hip hop, rap, whatever. So you only apply or submit your song to the description that you think you've got a shot at, basically. That's how that works. Yeah. So
And have you seen an opportunity for that one come up yet?
I haven't pitched this one too many times, to be honest. Just because, again, it's the listings that you get, and which ones you submit. Frankly, a lot of my stuff sounds a little more 60-ish or 70-ish, and so I've submitted to a lot of listings that sound like that they're looking for, not necessarily vintage and that they want the original production of that era, but just something that sounds like it would happen in the 60s or 70s. Or it depends. Each song is different, so it's just a matter of which song. It's kind of the ultimate in target marketing, if you will. In other words, depending on the listing, you pick out which song is the most appropriate, and you just put it out there and see what happens. The good thing about Broadjam is they actually, in their software, they tell you when they listen to the song, and also how many times they listen to it, which is really good, because a lot of times if they listen once, that's usually what happens. They always listen once.
And who is they? Who's the listener?
The client, whoever the client is.
I see. Like the music supervisor, for instance, that they
right,
think.
Or it could be a library. It could be. Usually, it's a music supervisor or a library, one of the two.
Okay.
Occasionally, it might be somebody actually with the movie itself, if they're, let's say, an indie film or that kind of thing, or a student film even. But again, it's usually a music supervisor or a library.
Good, man. Well, good luck. I mean, obviously, all these songs have potential to be synced. It's just like anything else. It's just, hopefully you find the right opportunity and somebody recognizes it. The one problem I've always found with this business in general, and we've already talked, there's just so much music and even with music, with music libraries, I guess it's just put in a database with all these hashtags, and the more, so the people get directed to it electronically versus, old school, somebody would actually actively pitch it, and maybe somebody would pay more attention to it. So, but I found that's pretty rare. So, so a lot of these sync placement, things that, to me, it's just like anything else. You're a number. You're just a number. So I don't know how you get prioritized. I don't know. Does anybody know a way around that, or is there some people that are better, some of these companies better than others?
Well, if you get a publishing deal, usually the person who chooses the song for that publisher will kind of know what to have, some idea of what to do with it.
If you have a real active publisher, I think, but I'm talking about more of like these music libraries. I've just found, I think they just put your music in a bag with tags on it, and then whoever's searching gets directed to your music, but as well as others, because other songs fit that category. And then, as opposed to somebody like saying, hey, this is at the top of the stack, listen to this first.
Right. What's interesting about Broadjam is sometimes they will say, like, client listened to 25 songs, client listened to 50 songs, etc. And so you have some sense of how many people submitted, and at least it clarifies a little bit better kind of where you stand, if you will. And also, they will, if something does get chosen, that they will play that, on Broadjam, they will show you which song got placed. And that's instructive as well, because it teaches you.
Even if it wasn't your song, it will tell you which one. Got it.
Let's say which one out of the 50 actually they decided to go with.
Okay.
And of course, even though you've passed that one cut, that doesn't mean it's really actually going to be in the movie, because at the last
Yeah,
minute,
that's right. Yeah,
yeah,
that's right. I've had
it
that
gets
happen a lot.
Yeah, it gets substituted with
But
something else. So
well, the one thing, and I know probably you hear this a million times, but I even heard it from that music supervisor last night, is it's always they want to do the one stop. So,
right,
you either control, you either wrote the thing yourself, both master and composition, or you have administrative rights from all your collaborators because they don't want to deal with more than one party. So that a lot of times helps, maybe put you further along and ahead of the pack.
well, what I've heard is that if you're in a library, then they assume the library has done all the legal clearance, or
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
knows that it's correct,
Yeah.
and so that's why they tend to go with libraries. And so there's that side of the coin. And like you say, if you met somebody at a conference and you just get along, and they think, oh, I'm going to promote this person, I'm going to do something for this person, they'll find a way. you know, there's
Well,
that
yeah,
side of it too.
that's like, the ideal thing, a manager or pitching agent or publisher that really believes in you and wants to work hard for you. I mean, that's just like the ideal, which I just, it's probably rare, but I like music libraries. I'm glad they exist, but it's just I'm always wondering. Some of them I know have hundreds of thousands of songs, and I just wonder, like, how does anybody find you in there?
And it depends on how much computer work they've done. If they've done a lot of good metadata work where you can be found by searching, then, if they've tagged or you've tagged it and give it to them, if they tag it correctly in their database and you can be found, then you'll get heard. But
Yeah,
you
right.
never know really.
And there's a fine line between over tagging, probably. You know what I mean? There's another extreme there versus less too minimal, and then you're not going to be found.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't know how granular you need to go. Does anybody have any feedback? How granular do you need to go on your description of your music?
The better your metadata, the more likely it is to run across a hook and get pulled out of the water and thrown up on a boat, so a fisherman can decide if they like the looks of it or if they're going to throw it back.
Okay. But if you over describe your music sometimes, then don't you dilute yourself? Is there a fine line there or no?
The metadata is just the hashtag. So if somebody's searching one of these libraries and types in, slow, acoustic, Americana, Los Angeles, that song might come up.
Okay.
Well, the other thing too is sometimes they will ask you, who do you sound like? Who does this song sound like?
Yeah.
Like you just said, it sounded like America to you. Now, Broadjam actually has a space where you put in who you sound like, and so in fact, it's interesting that to me one of the hardest things to fill out is just that. Who do you sound like? Because every generation has a different person you may sound like. Somebody who's in their 20s may think, oh, you sound like so-and-so. Somebody in their 50s may think you sound like
Well,
somebody else.
I get that's actually a good point you're making. I think these days, because we're multi-generations of working in the business here, you probably have to maybe give a range like, hey, Sinatra and Michael Bublé,
Right.
Well, someone Ben and I both knew who's no longer around, real tall, skinny, weird guy, Ben. One of the first things he taught me was you have to automatically be able to say, I sound like a mix of blank, blank, and blank, and 3 artists. And if you can't answer that question on the spot in front of someone in the record business, their attention is probably going to drift.
Yeah, well, and that's true, not just for Kim Fowley, who you're talking about, I'm sure, but most of these industry people, agents, A&R people, record label people, they all want because they want those reference points because they only want to chase after something that's been successful before. So, because I can remember I used to work with this band that I managed that didn't sound anything like Pearl Jam or Nirvana, but their agent kept telling everybody they're a mix between Pearl Jam and Nirvana because that's what was hot at the time, just to get people to pay attention.
Yeah.
But in reality, you should be authentic about it, So.
Yeah. Because if I came home expecting Pearl Jam and Nirvana and put it on and it sounded like, Warrant, I'd be pretty pissed.
Yeah, I know, but it was just hype. It was just hype, So.
But with music supervisors,
and Kim was great at that. By the way, he would just hype things. everything out of Kim's mouth was hype. Every
yeah.
word.
Oh yeah. But I heard that and thought of a British guy. I'm very Anglo-centric, and I listen to a lot more British music than most folks, and certainly most folks would guess by looking at me. But there's a guy named Richard Hawley, Hawley, and you should check him out. He had a record that came out in 2019 called Further, and then he had a greatest hits record that came out after that. And he's been around for around 30 years. He's the touring guitar player with Pulp. He was in a couple of indie bands before that. And it kind of made me think like, oh, an American Richard Hawley. So, and that's very much a compliment. So I think you'll pretty much instantly recognize that once you put that Further album on, if you decide to listen to it.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, but yeah, it's good to have like an elevator pitch kind of thing, right? You know, because if somebody asks you what your music sounds like and you like don't have an answer, then people are just gonna wow. Then it's just, you know, if you can't describe it yourself, how are we going to get an audience to? Now, this is maybe different than sync. I'm thinking more about somebody who's trying to sign something to a record deal for mass exposure. They really want you to. They want to feel like you've got a handle on your music. So, you know, because they're only going to regurgitate. They're either going to regurgitate what you tell them, or you're totally leaving it up to them to describe it, which may or may not be a wise thing to do. They might screw it up, or not put in the time. So. But I don't know. I mean, do all of you feel like you can give a quick description? Because, you know, the worst thing to me is if somebody's like, oh, I sound like this, and this, and then it's too confusing for people to get a handle on it.
That's a very good point. Yeah. It's almost like you're better to put yourself in one box than try to cover 3 or 4.
I think so. But you take a chance, but it's probably better. You know, I guess you hope you're to have a core box you fit into, but it could cross over.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, because assigning a genre to something these days, I mean, you can play the same song to 5 different people, and they may pick 5 different genres or subgenres. You know.
I know. Well, to me, it's just I just listen to music now I just want to like it. I don't want to have to think about a category.
Exactly.
Really, I don't. But you know, but there's people that have jobs that really do have to put things into boxes. So
yeah,
you have to, you know, be aware of it.
Yeah. And that's all we have for the songs.
Okay. Well, I mean, I'm back if anybody has any other legal questions or, you know, I'm only giving my opinion on these things.
Let Ben finish. Sorry to interrupt, Ben. Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
You guys take care, Ben. It's good talking to you.
Well,
I wrote a review of your book on Amazon. Check it out when you're done.
What's that? Oh, you did a review. Oh, thank you. Oh, by the way, yeah. Music Business in 10 Easy Lessons.
Okay.
It's on Amazon. It's either you can either get a paperback copy or you could download it too.
Mm-hmm. I have a question that's a non-legal question, if I may. I'm just curious about what music inspired you to enter the music business, and also secondarily, is it like people tend to be locked into their eras? Is it like a stretch for you to like be able to go with the flow of some of the newer music and genres and everything?
Well, I don't. Well, I'm just gonna defend myself here. Well, so the first thing, I mean, I grew up in the 70s primarily, okay. So I was listening to a lot of AM radio still, and it was right when FM was starting to overtake AM radio. But so they were just playing top 40 music. So I was listening to, whether it was this, the ABBA or the Steve Miller Band, or in the 80s, the Huey Lewis and the News and Blondie and Journey, whatever was hot at the time, Born, so that's what I really grew up listening to, just top. And I always listened to Casey Kasem's American Top 40 religiously every week. And I wanted to know 40 on down. And I really was always more attracted for what didn't make the top 10, or I was super bummed when something didn't. It stopped at number 27. I'm like, oh, this song's so good. Why didn't it go top 10? But, but I grew up listening to top 40 music. So I like hooks. I like 3-minute songs. over the years, now I've worked in the business over 30 years now. So, and I've got Sirius XM radio. So I constantly, I'm switching around stations, genres, whether it's, regular rock, pop rock, country, hard rock. I'm not really a jazz person. I got to be honest about that. And I'm not really super into rap either. But I listen to all those things just to sort of try to stay up to date as much as I can. There's only so much you can do because, I'm not going to go out and I remember reading the Clive Davis book, and now Clive Davis is a wealthy guy with a lot of helpers. So, but supposedly even today at 90 years old or whatever he is, he listens to the top 100 every week to stay current.
Wow.
I don't know how it's possible, but I try to do that as much as possible just to stay current with the trends because people play me new things but I've also in the new music I hear a lot of times I'm hearing inspirations and it being based on 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. I'm hearing a lot of things recycled,
Right.
in new ways and mixed it. So I don't know. I mean, I hope I have a decent handle on it, but I'm not trying to say I'm as cutting edge as the next guy, whatever. I mean, I just know what I like. But I mean, even a new song that might be the craziest sounding thing in the world, if it has some kind of, essential hook to it and something melodic and catchy to it and a cool vocal, those kind of things I'm always looking for. I mean, I'm just a lawyer, guys, so mostly I'm pushing paper and doing contracts, but on rare occasions, maybe I'm trying to find something that maybe other people might be interested in. I've done that in my past. It's hard, but I'm looking for certain elements that you'd find that are going to exist, whether it was the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, or tomorrow. And there's certain things like hooks and great vocals and cool lyrics and all these, those are going to be there. So I'm just looking for things like that. But so I mean, for what it's worth, yeah, because I hear new things every day that I really like. But a lot of times they do have elements of things that maybe sound like they're from the past, and I don't know if that's my bias or what, or that's just the way music's created.
Wow, thank you. Can I ask a quick follow-up though? You mentioned
oh, by the way, and when I started listening to the music in the 70s, they were still playing a lot of 60s music. A lot of cool. They were still playing the Beatles like crazy, the Beach Boys like crazy, or even bands that you don't hear that much anymore. But back then you might have heard them, that were, there's Paul Revere and the Raiders or whatever it is, that made really cool sounding rock songs that they were still playing on the radio then that were almost like still recurrent songs because they weren't old enough yet to be completely phased out of the playlist. So I grew up listening to a lot of 60s music. And of course, most things are probably still based on, Beatles and things like that. So I mean, that's kind of what's built into my DNA, but I'm not really a creator in the tradition. I mean, I grew up, I played a little piano and drums and guitar, but I was never really very good. So, and I leave that to the pros, So I'm really mostly just a music fan at heart.
That's great. Real quick one though, technically, you mentioned the clarity of the vocals in some of the songs you heard tonight. To my ears, a lot of the current songs, I find myself often straining to make out what the vocals are. And I don't mean just the hard rock stuff. I mean, it's just the way everything is mixed. I find the vocals just are not front and center the way they used to be.
I know it's true, especially in rap and hip hop too. I can't even. It's all the mumbling and stuff that goes on. But I'm just talking about if you're trying to have your music in its sync environment, I really think you got to make it crystal clear. And certainly, I think if you're a rock artist or a pop artist, you would want to have the vocals crystal clear.
Yeah.
Or it's going to be mixed that way by somebody for radio, But you're right. There's a lot of stuff that I can't understand the lyrics. But I don't know why. I don't know if that's intentional, I guess. And I don't know why people get away with that. But for me personally, I've always been more into the hooks and the melodies that kind of stick in my head as opposed to the lyrics. I've never really been that big about digging apart lyrics and poetry and all this like some people do. But I do appreciate a really cool, interesting lyric. But I never paid as much attention to the lyrics as the music itself. But that's just me. I don't know how other people are.
Interesting. Thanks.
Anybody else?
I think that pretty much covers it.
Okay. I was going to say I had one final question, and that's the sort of renaming by some of the houses.
Retitling.
Retitling, yeah.
Yeah.
Is that something that's become more standard or going much more out of favor?
I don't know. I'm not seeing it as often, really, but I to me it
Okay.
makes sense because if you do the if you're going to do a non-exclusive deal, and which I recommend if you can do it, but I can understand why a music library, if they're not going to have an exclusive on it, they want to have some way to prove that they're the one that pitched the song.
Right.
Because if you've got 3 people pitching the same title at the same time to the same music supervisor, who's going to get credit for that? So that's
Right.
that's why a lot of these companies want to have exclusives because they don't want that. But even with the retitling, I guess it happens now and then where the 2 songs get picked up by the music supervisor and they're really the same song, but they have different titles, and then all of a sudden, well, who gets credit for that? So I think for some reason, I've heard that some of these music supervisor people are anti-retitling because maybe they've had bad experiences where they got sucked into a dispute or something. But I don't know how often that really happens. But I mean, I have no issue with retitling as long as they tell you about it. Because if they don't tell you what the new title is and they place your song, how do you know that they ever placed your song? I'm not saying that they would intensely try to like take all the money and not tell you about it, but I think if they're going to retitle it, I usually put in the contract that yes, you have the ability to retitle it, but you have to notify us of the retitle, so you have the ability to track it as well.
Right.
For cue sheets too. The cue sheet's super important. That whatever title, the retitle, the original, what's going to be on that cue sheet.
Yeah.
But I don't see it as much in contracts actually. But
Okay.
I mean, whenever I've drafted sync placement deals and library deals, when it's a non-exclusive thing, I always put that in there because I think it's better to give the company the ability to do that. But I don't know how the music supervisor community feels about it because I'm not really there, and I'm not the one pitching it, by the way. I do not do any pitching to film and TV. It's way too hard. You just have to know those. You can't. I remember years ago, I used to go to those Billboard film and TV kind of conferences where all the music supervisors would be. And I remember just trying to meet them, and it was just really hard because they were just like treating me like I was a nobody, and I just didn't want to deal with it.
Amen. Anybody else? Going once, going twice. Jimmy?
Okay. Well, thank you guys for coming. Next thing that's coming up is our showcase. Been
2
doing
weeks.
it at the Urban Homestead again. It's been working out pretty good.
Is that the space you were using before?
Yeah, at the farm.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's a wonderful place, and it's still been
So when do you do those showcase? Once is it?
every third Wednesday.
Oh, the third Wednesday. Okay.
Yeah, every third Wednesday.
2 weeks from tonight.
So
Okay.
2 weeks from tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then also I've been hanging out.
Now, what would you do tonight since it's like rainy, sort of, kind of? Would you still do it?
Depends. We did do it at the Jewel Universe one time because we knew it was going to rain really hard. Then last time we did it outdoors anyway, even though there was a threat of rain, and it didn't rain, which was good because we got nice heaters there where it's comfortable.
Okay.
The sound system still works good, so yeah, we're happy there.
Yeah.
And then if
Okay.
it's really small, then we've had a couple of times where it's just been like a little jam session song circle, and that's been really good too. So
Yeah, because it is outside, so you do need the heater if it's cold, right?
right, yeah. But even in these post-COVID times, there's still people that prefer being outdoors because of the ventilation and all. So
And then if somebody's performing, do they get 3 songs, or what's the set length for something like yours? Is it 1?
it's 2, and then if we have very few people, we'll go with 3.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all up to Steve. Steve's the MC head guy there for that.
Yeah, it's usually 2, but sometimes 3, like Jimmy said.
Sorry, I've got to.
And then there's other opportunities that keep opening up too. I still do the thing at the Kulaks, and that's been doing really good.
Now you do that how often?
Well, I have 2 for Tuesday. So next Tuesday is the second Tuesday in the month. And so that's my night. And people get to do 2 songs instead of 1. And they do it for $30 for the video instead of $20 for
Okay.
one song.
So every so often I always hear word that Kulaks is going to go out of business. They have no, but they always have stayed open, right? That they're okay for now.
No, they're never okay. He's always
Okay.
deeply in debt.
I mean, I literally for 30 years have been hearing Kulaks is going to close.
That's right. Yeah. And it's always like right on the edge, but you just keep riding the horse till it dies, kind of a thing,
Oh, okay. Well, I'm just glad it's there. I like Kulaks. I haven't been there in a bit, but yeah, I'm glad it's there.
Well, one of the things that I just recently did, just to prove a point, there's 2 of our artists that actually one that's regular here, but another one that I met at Taxi. The guy at Taxi was really, really depressed because he was hanging out with some people who were giving him all the doom and gloom about this music industry. And he says, "Yeah, man, I'm turning 73 and I'm done." I said, "No, you're not done. You got something to say." And this other person that I've been working with, Catherine Beck, she just had her 73rd birthday too. Said, "Well, I'm not quite where you guys are at, but I'm an old guy, so I believe we have something to say." So we booked the Jeweled Universe towards the end of last year, and lo and behold, we did that, and we sold out the place as 3 of us in the round. So that kind of proves them that we had something to say, but we just had to combine our resources. And then after that, then I said, "Okay, so now let's document this, let's archive this." And I said, "Okay." So we did a Kulaks thing. We rented out Kulaks for the entire night, did a whole night of our stuff. 8 people showed up. And they were really bummed out. Said, "Well, only 8 people showed up." Jimmy says, "Yeah, but wait till tomorrow when the video hits." And sure enough, as soon as the video hit, 300 views in one day. So,
Okay.
That's interesting.
Well, that's the positive thing about this kind of stuff. More people can see you and either in real time or later. So
exactly. And it just
Cool.
keeps growing. So now they're realizing the power of the video and just how much that can happen. And that's one of the things about music now. Music has, in my opinion, I think it's changed from being a commodity to a vehicle. Because, if you're able to get the music out there, yeah, you may not be generating revenue from the music itself, but wherever the music takes you, it could take you to another place where you are doing a live performance. People want to see you. It'll take you to a place where you can sell merch. It'll take you to a place where you do get that sync thing, or you get to a place where you can do a gig and have sponsorship because of that. You're attached to something. Those are the kinds of things that can generate revenue now that you didn't have as many opportunities for before. And it's a wide open field. And if people understand that, then it's all of a sudden, yeah, even for me, like, again, us old guys, our demographic goes to festivals. They go to farmers markets and everything else. Well, those places always have music, and they actually pay scale most of the time. So we can get out there and do that. And then that generates, again, more fans, more potential merch sales, more revenue from that, much more connections, because all the people that are at like a farmer's market or something, they don't want to do their own thing. And yeah, they'll pay you to do their commercials and stuff because we're within that demographic and we'll attract that kind of an audience.
And usually you're talking about just acoustic guitars, not a whole lot of gear, not a lot of equipment.
So low production, very simple. And, so the return on investment's pretty good because it's not a lot of investment in time or rehearsal or anything else, yet it still generates revenue that can make a difference. So those are the kinds of things that I've been doing. And, if I can set this thing up properly and create some kind of either a program or a process or procedure, then I think other people can follow in suit and make something happen. So I'm excited about that.
Okay. Well, yeah, thank you for allowing these opportunities for all of us.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, because somebody's got to put in the work like you do. So, and it's nice that you can perform yourself. I know you do. That's cool.
Yeah. And I think Chris is going to be talking.
By the way,
yeah, next month. So,
by the way, before I forget, if anybody needs to reach me. But I'm just, you can Google search Ben McLane or benmclane.com. So, and I'm in we still have an office in North Hollywood, so I'm, in the Valley.
Okay. Well, thanks once again, Ben, and I owe you lunch at least. Haven't done that for a while, and we'll do
Well, you
that
keep telling me, what is it, that producer
Yes.
mixer thing? Do you still do that?
every Wednesday.
Every
so-
Wednesday, yeah. Sorry, I didn't.
Yeah.
That's what I think you said we should meet at.
Yes, we should do
But
that.
where do they do that again? Where?
Harrigan's.
Where's that?
It's on Burbank and Victory,
Oh,
So-
okay.
real close by where you're at.
Yeah, okay.
All right, we'll do that, and hopefully on a Wednesday soon.
Okay, but that's lunch, right?
That's lunch.
Okay.
We'll try
What
to-
time? Like noon or 11:30 or
it
1? Or?
starts at officially it starts at 12:30, but a lot of people
Okay.
get there at noon. So
Okay. And it goes, like 2 hours or
yeah,
so?
about 2 hours, give or take.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then is it like at a round table, big table, multiple
No,
tables? Like how?
it's just an outdoor patio, and
Oh,
everybody's
it's outdoor
camping
patio.
out.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
So-
right, cool. Well, yeah, thank you. Sorry, I haven't been to it, but it sounds like a good
Well,
event.
I got to keep reminding you and inviting you down there. So we'll get it happening.
All right. Thanks you everybody for
Okay,
having me.
thank you,
Thank
Ben.
you.
Appreciate
Thank you for
it.
coming
We'll
out.
see you
All right,
guys
good
next
luck.
time.